Welcome back to this side of the studio for the EMEA Masters Semifinals. The first one, the Wildcats get 2 match points here. And that was a crazy game, if I may say. I think it's an understatement here, Chamara.
We've had another incident at the Nexus.
Another one.
It's like, I don't think I've seen a tournament with so many like failed end games.
Just hit the Nexus.
Just hit the Nexus, man. It's not that hard. Hit the Nexus next time.
Nexus incident, Chemtech incident also.
Well, okay, I don't know why you guys are Chemtech haters here. You were a Cloud Soul lover last season. I don't know what's up with that.
I won't hear it. I won't hear it. Chemtech Soul, it's the worst one.
I was honestly sweating. I was seeing Bao like farming CS at the very end. And I'm like, it's 2 auto attacks from dying. Just kill the Nexus.
Let's review how we got there. Go step by step by SK Prime's early game, if I may say. Good situation, but it's constantly the same issues of objective control and how to play around this.
It feels like it's too lazy when it comes to setting down their vision. Bot lane wave is not even pushed, mid lane wave is barely shoved, and they just enter a fog of war where they have no idea where their opponents are coming from. And this is extremely problematic because, again, we're saying that SK Prime play through 1 wave, then they funnel all into the pit versus Cassiopeia and Xayah. This is extremely lethal, especially when Xayah was able to spread the feathers throughout this pit. But this is something that keeps on reoccurring because it wasn't just the Dragon. Yes, the Dragon went south, triple kill for the Xayah, but they bounced back.
Exactly.
They had Prime again with the Blitzcrank hooks, getting the pressure, but this happens again. This from the very beginning, Febi tries to push down mid lane, but he gets flanked by Fiora. Top lane is not even shoved in on the wave. So again, they're turning in to do that objective completely blind with no setup and get punished.
Yeah, you know, it's frustrating to watch sometimes because even in the first move there, actually, in the first part of that B-roll, they technically have numbers advantage, but like when you think about how geography works on League of Legends, if you don't immediately kill the 2 that you have numbers advantage on, it's a 4v4, and then it's a 4v4 on 2 separate fronts where you have to pick and choose a fight. And in that kind of instance where, you know, you're trying to make the first pounce on a target, and that doesn't work, the fight becomes scrappy, you saw it there, they then have to make the decision to go towards that pit, and you're never gonna walk out of a pit when you're just getting shot in a barrel by Cassio and Xayah of all champions.
It's mostly a matter of how they place and how they execute the composition in these specific settings, because when you look at the rest of it, and here I want to point all attention on Prime and his Blitzcrank, who found the perfect hooks every time and created every good opportunity for his team trouble.
I mean, honestly, the dude was everywhere.
Yep.
Every time somebody stepped into his bot lane, hook. Every time Maokai would try to gank,
he's there.
Dead. He's there.
You open the fridge, he's there.
I feel like that mid lane hook was very creative as well. It's kind of like the Thresh Blitzcrank that we see a lot in solo queue as well. You pull in your Blitzcrank further behind, but it was only the Fiora. So the Fiora flashes through, gets out, has riposte as well. One of the more durable champions on the Wildcats roster right there. And then again, disaster. You have to walk blind into the objective. Yes, you have a hook, but it doesn't necessarily matter because the objective Wildcats came for. They finished, and then they take another kill.
Yeah, I think it's the instance where Blitzcrank is the kind of champion that really does just break a game, right? Yeah. He's a game-breaking champion because all he has to do is hit a hook, and then that's it. Like, you're either getting summoners or you're getting a kill in most instances. I feel like Prime was doing that very consistently throughout the game. And then as soon as all of a sudden, you know, it's Wildcats who have control of the map, Wildcats who have control of the vision, that does get shut down and that starts to feel bad. But I think definitely Prime is the reason why SK Prime got to the point where they were on the map, because it was just hook after hook after hook.
Absolutely, and stayed alive, and as you said, were able to contest vision and get the map control that they wanted to have. But at the end of the day, we've been criticizing SK for the few slip-ups in how to control objectives and how to execute their compositions maybe, but props to the Wildcats to seize these opportunities every time and turn the game to their advantage.
Again, it comes down to Wildcats' patience. They know how to play a front-to-back game. There were a lot of mistakes, don't get me wrong. Bao misstepping, not using his flash, Maokai getting caught. There were a ton of mistakes from Wildcats. But after this happened and the triple kill incident on the Xayah, they pulled in the brakes. Of course, that's another incident right here where Xayah is kind of like buffing the CS numbers of killing the Nexus.
I think Bao was trying to lifesteal up, but like, do you know what situation you wouldn't need to lifesteal up in when you actually end the game? And then the Nexus is dead. So
Health doesn't matter.
Bit of an incident, and yeah, unfortunately these walls don't get cleared. We see the extended, eventually the double TP does come in. I will say though, I think this is, for me, we said it as we came in.
Oh, no.
SK Prime, they've been claimed by the Chemtech soul here, IMO. There is obviously a lot of there's a lot of execution thresholds which haven't necessarily been met also. But I just feel like against this kind of composition, with the one that you have, you have to end the game like super fast. Otherwise,
6K?
Yeah, I'm getting a headache watching this goal graph.
So where I come from, this is just every day. This is the LPL gold graph. So I'm used to it. I won't get a headache, thankfully. But I will just have to say, yeah, for Wildcats, this is just a turn and burn, front to back composition.
Yeah.
And if SK aren't ending the game, you see the kind of thing that can happen here.
It's not 46K, it's 48K on the Xayah. And just to make sure that people know I'm a believer, I turned around at the very early game when Bao died, when Maokai gets caught and he dies as well, and I said, Bao is gonna carry this game. And he damn well did. What a crazy, insane performance. And again, Xayah, such a key piece, not only for the Unicorns of Love versus Movistar, but here again for Wildcats versus SK Prime. And what a monumental timing for the TCL to push down the gas and actually try to get into this finals for the very first time.
For the very first time. We'll talk about the TCL and their journey a bit later, but first I want to attract attention on the draft here because so far, Kalista was banned. Blitzcrank is not a champion that I was expecting to see in this moment, in this setting. I think it made sense. The Kindred as well being picked on the side of SK Prime. What did you think of their approach here on the game 3?
I liked it. I think it's a bit of a curveball comparatively to what we've seen so far in the series. I think this is what I actually wanted to see SK Prime potentially come out and challenge the Wildcats with anyway, because we kind of came in with the expectation of Bao can be this, this carry later on in the game, but a lot of the times, sure, in the early game he might be getting some resources at best, but it's normally about the mid jungle and support, and that often leaves Bao on a soft island where maybe these 2v2 champions like the Kalista and Blitzcrank can come in and actually try and abuse the fact that Bao's on his own. In this instance, the 2v2 was quite back and forth. Yes, we saw a couple of occasions where it actually just went the Xayah's way, but I think this is the kind of lane where you wanted to push the issue, and it did. It secured a lot of the early dragons for the side of SK Prime. They were able to snowball an objective lead. It just unfortunately didn't end up being a game-end lead by the time they hit the 8K mark.
Which can be a huge momentum shift here, Trouble. Losing this way in a composition like this with key picks. I know that Prime likes his Blitzcrank.
Losing loves like his Kindred as well.
He loves his Kindred as well, losing like this to the Nexus. Focusing on to the next game, who might be the last for them if they don't bounce back. How do you approach next game on a psychological perspective?
I think you pull off a complete Mad Lions. Backs against the wall, comfort picks. You pick your best champion, the one you feel most comfortable in. Again, MSI semifinalist, World semifinalist, Genax in the LEC, Lurox in the LEC, Prime for almost 8 years in the scene, Keduii top 2 in every ERO he's played in for the past four splits. These guys have the experience and they have the hands. Yes, mental might be a little bit booming because your back's against the wall. So again, go towards your comfort. Try to maybe pull a Wukong back out if Wildcats don't want to ban it out, if they feel like Blitzcrank is more of a threat, if they feel Kalista is more of a threat because they work for Prime, SK Prime in the early game. So yeah, try to get your Ahris, try to get your Wukongs. We saw that SK Prime really prioritized their Ahri over the Wukong in this particular draft. So comfort overall, and I'm pretty sure that mechanically, these players have more than what it takes.
And I'll toss in one extra coin on top of that as well. Curve picks, like curveball picks. Genax apparently has curveball picks ready.
We haven't seen any.
We haven't seen any, plain and simple. So try and throw Destroy off as well. Yes, we know Bao just had like a 50k almost game damage. Sure. Play from the top side with something where you can actually control these team fights later on and see if you can actually, put Destroy in a position where he feels uncomfortable inside the laning phase, and that can be a facet where you get to shut that down, and you should have an advantage up there instead of just kind of maybe soft losing across the map.
So the approach is set for now. We have a lot more to say about the TCL, about the Wildcats and their amazing journey here, and how to approach what could be the way of reaching finals in just a moment. We are experiencing a bit of a delay. We'll be right back in just a couple minutes with more content and more EMEA Masters. Stay tuned.
Baby, como nadie, quiero respirar hasta tu aire. No quiero que te vayas de mi nave. Tú me tienes loco, ya lo sabes. Tú te nos separe. Puede ser que no te guste nadie. Puede ser que estemos hechos para manos. Puede ser, puede ser, puede ser, puede ser que la vida nos separe. Puede ser que no te guste nadie. Puede ser que estemos hechos para manos. Tú te mueves, baby, como nadie. Quiero respirar hasta tu aire. No quiero que te bajes de mi nave. Tú me tienes loco, ya lo sabes. Tú te mueves, baby, como nadie. Quiero respirar hasta tu aire. No quiero que te bajes de mi nave. Tú me tienes loco, ya lo sabes. Tú te mueves, baby, como nadie. Tú te mueves, baby, como nadie, nadie. Tú te mueves, baby, como nadie. Tú te mueves, baby, como nadie, tú te mueves, baby, como nadie. Tú me tienes loco, ya lo sabes.
Ay, can't stop, won't stop till we on top. Quit, I think not. Coming hot for the #1 spot, yeah. No key, got the game on lock, ayy. Big threes when I take my shot, ayy. On the rise and we ain't gon' drop. On the grind, it's our time, just watch. If you want it, you can get it. Life gets hard, but don't you let it get you down. Go get the crown because our time is now. Ay, we gotta get it. Gotta get up, gotta go, we gotta get it. Ay, they won't forget us. Made it happen and we all became legends. We gotta get it, gotta get it, gotta get it. We gotta get it, gotta get it, gotta get it. We gotta get it, gotta get it, gotta get it. We gotta get it. We can't be contained when we leave the game. My name will remain. We don't need the fame. You can keep this chain. We broke free, so things won't be the same. Nah, on the mission, gotta get it. Let's work. You were raised on the net. I'm raising my net worth, but it ain't about the money. Nah, it ain't about the cause. All that matters is the world knows who we are. Stars. If you want it, you can get it. Life gets hard, but don't you let it get you down. Go get the crown because our time is now. Hey, we gotta get it. Gotta get up, gotta go, we gotta get it. Hey, they won't forget us. Made it happen and we all became legends. We gotta get it, gotta get it, gotta get it. We gotta get it, gotta get it, gotta get it. We gotta get it, gotta get it, gotta get it. We gotta get it. Know that our time is now. Yes, life can get hard, but don't ever let it keep you down. See, we are all kings and queens and we all deserve crowns. So don't wait. Get up, go out and get it. Now. Hey, we gotta get it. Gotta get up, gotta go, we gotta get it. Hey, they won't forget us. Made it happen and we all became legends. We gotta get it, gotta get it, gotta get it. We gotta get it, gotta get it, gotta get it. We gotta get it, gotta get it, gotta get it. We gotta get it. We gotta get it. Gotta get it, gotta get it. We gotta get it. Gotta get it, gotta get it, get it.
Yeah, you know I don't really do this too often. Yeah, I'll be good for real. Just watch. Yeah, hey, yeah. How you gon' feel when I take it? How you gon' feel when I take it? We about action, we don't say. We about action, we don't say. Coming for the crown, I need my fit. I don't stay in rooms that I don't fit in. She swear that I stay up on her mind like a fitted. Ain't that cap? She probably wouldn't give me time if I ain't around. Please CC me, email me. I need all formalities. I need all incentives. This money's about the only thing I mind like my business. That's black on the type of wave I've been on. And it's always got to crash like it's Windows. Need all of that and more. Give me all the glow. Give me one play. I'm on 24. Kobe right in that hour. shot wet just like showers. Tell me who got all of that power, oh, that's me. I carry loaded team, I get that ring, I'm MVP. Know that they envy me just like cement, I'm in these streets. No opportunity, knock at the door, I give you keys. My mama raised me selfish, I don't share, I play for keeps. And that's all game time, know that win all mine, I'ma keep it, baby. How you gon' feel when I take it? How you gon' feel when I take it? We about actions, we don't say shit. We about action, we don't say shit. Yeah, how you gon' feel when I take it? Yeah, how you gon' feel when I take it? We about action, we don't say shit. We about action, tell me how you gon' feel. Yeah, when I take your spot, tell me how you gon' feel. Yeah, only thing I need is time and the rest is on chill. Yeah, tell me when I take your spot, tell me how you gon' feel. Tell me how you gon' feel. Yeah, hey, how you gon' feel when I take it? How you gon' feel when I take it? We about action, we don't say shit. We about action, tell me how you gon' feel.
When the shots fire, my soul at ease, yeah. If I go down, I might cause a scene, yeah. Them scheme, them go to sleep, yeah. They don't wanna go war with me, yeah. Make it run, make it run, run, make it run. Make it run, make it run, run, make it run. When the shots fire, my soul at ease, yeah. If I go down, I might
Platinum, we target on my head, oh, they thought I would find out, yeah. Gotta be joking, I ain't been 100, how do you sound now, yeah?
Oh, you better focus, I'm locked and loaded. To say the game, you can focus.
Welcome back, one and all, to the EMEA Masters semi-finals. We do have a slight update for you. We did take a slightly longer break because an exploitation of a bug from Istanbul Wildcats, despite having received specific notice from league officials beforehand not to do, they did do it, unfortunately. So the Istanbul Wildcats lose the Phase 2 bans in this coming up phase. It's unfortunate, and it does open up a hell of a lot of possibilities now. And, obviously it wasn't game impacting enough for them to kind of, obviously replay the whole thing, but it's still massive coming into game number 4.
And I think particularly now that we're going to have Wildcats likely going to be going over to red side, because I would imagine that on a loss, you choose blue side again. It means that when you come around to those second round of picks, there's less ability to cut out something like a good matchup top lane or something.
And that's, I think, who's the big winner here. I think Genax, like the fact he can probably get his hands on the sign in that second rotation now, makes things a hell of a lot easier. So I really do think this opens up a lot of opportunities now for just Genax to be in a significantly stronger position when it comes to that champ pool.
Yeah, and of course, an update on our end, of course. Not going to have the super fancy lower third picks and bans. Unfortunately, that technology has failed us today a little bit. Look, it's the nature of a live broadcast. These things happen, but we will have picks and bans. It is the Daggertron. You know what? You're dead right. Yep. Look it up. Look up the LPL lore.
With that. We're going to have Prime versus Daggertron, and I know who wins in those stories. Just saying.
I like this new bootleg Transformers we're building.
In the support versus support matchup, Prime probably has me beat up.
Don't put yourself so down. I've seen you play some Rakan. You're decent.
My only knowledge of this stuff is basically from the Michael Bay movies, and which is pretty not great. I can't remember most of the characters.
There'll be like at least 15 explosions in the first 2 minutes of lane phase.
That sounds great. Can we get that in the next game?
I mean, I'm going to be honest, I'm a little bit of a Transformers nerd. So I remember the original cartoon, the comics, the whole shebang, even the new Netflix cartoons and stuff like that. You're right on the right tracks, though. The Michael Bay movies, they're not great, but they're really fun. They're really fun, and they're very kind of just exploding and fun. But anyway, back into the game. We went on a bit too much of a side quest there for a second. Coming into this one here, we obviously got the Istanbul Wildcats 2-1 up in this series, but this is a massive now opportunity here for SK Prime to try and strike the match. Like you mentioned, not getting those bans extra into Genax could be huge.
even just mentally, like having maybe that little bit of an extra boon, because that last game is a toughie. So having a little bit of more time to get yourself settled. Now hearing that, okay, maybe we can actually get ourselves a little bit of an advantage here. That's got to be so big for SK Prime, because after that last game, I genuinely thought that could be the one that breaks the camel's back. The fact that you were so close to having full control of that game, and you lose Baron and Elder Dragon within a 3-minute period because of one mess up.
Particularly when you can kind of see that Prime League dream just slipping a little bit, because Prime League's got 2 teams in these semifinals. Got to keep reminding that, because it's such a big change. Last year it felt like Prime League, who used to consistently produce semifinalists, produced a victory, of course, in 2019 summer as well. Felt like they found themselves a golden split yet again, but one game closer to the brink. They're going to have to find their way back.
And I think it's been really interesting to see how we've kind of had these ebbs and flows over the course of EMEA Master history of, we saw the LVP in the rise of the Spanish League. Then it was the French League that started to come into dominance. Now in a semi-final without a single French representative, is it the DACH region's time to rise, or have the new members of the TCL finally put a lock on the EMEA Masters?
We have Lore. She's an LFL representative.
Here, look, if we're going to go down that route, we don't have a leg to stand on.
No, we don't. We don't. We really don't.
We're NLC party over here.
Just about as well. I don't think me and Dagda have had a representative from the NLC that we would consider in a very,
once
very
it
long
became
time.
the NLC.
Yeah, but honestly, yeah. Way back when the UKLC and even beyond. But coming back into this one here, of course, just going to see the first few bands coming in. The Gragas, the Jace, and now the Thresh band away. This could be a little bit of adaptation they're looking at to try and make sure they get the most out of that second phase.
Yeah, trying to see now what that first pick is going to be. Are we going to go back to something like a Jinx meta? It was passed up a little bit in this series with the Wukong Gong as well. Maybe there's the chance of a stronger jungle matchup being put through. Last game, of course, it was the Ahri first pick, which is then linked up with the with their jungler of the Kindred right after.
Wow. I mean, this is, if they do go for the Sion, going to be quite surprising. I don't think you want to just immediately lock that in. It is going to be the Ahri for FEBIVEN here. And now the question is, with that Thresh ban, are you comfortable enough to go back towards the Jinx? Or, again, do you just fall back to the Xayah? It's been very strong. Every single game we've seen it from Bao has really good control, makes it kind of difficult for Keduii to go for that Xayah, or the Zeri as well. We'll have to look and see, and it looks like it will be that Xayah on the first rotation.
So reminder again, second round bans are not going to be present from the Wildcats. Last time, with a similar draft with the Ahri first pick, it was followed up with the Sion being picked up in the second rotation, and then the Kalista. Now, if that were to happen again, you don't have your second round bans to ban away Renata, to ban away something like the Jarvan, which were very, very good, of course, into the Xayah, as Ashin pointed out in last Champions League, but also incredibly good as a kill lane to snowball the game.
And I think this is where you're going to have to see kind of more presence here from SK Prime to go, okay, well, like, now that we know that there's no bans, we can kind of go a little bit more aggressive. Seeing the Jinx, though, is a bit of a surprise. Keduii, as we said, hasn't played this at all in EMEA Masters, has 3 games back in the DACH region on it. He's 1 and 2 on that champion, and something that we'll have to see if he can have that pop-off performance. But at the Thresh there, what do they decide to pair with in that bot lane?
Well, looks like they're going straight for the Jarvan. It could be a Jarvan Jinx in that bot side, like you mentioned earlier. Could also be Lurox on that Jarvan in the jungle. So a little bit of a flex now coming into this at the end of this first round of picks.
Yeah, and Lurox has typically been more comfortable, more successful on great engaged go button champions from the jungle. Last game, of course, it was kind of switch off with kind of Lurox not having the go button, but then the Kalista ult of Keduii adding that back into the equation.
I think a lot of this as well is to keep that flexibility open. If Destroy goes for a Kennen, GenX then takes the Jarvan to the top side. You can have that Summon Airy E-Max Jarvan into that matchup. On the upside though, Tristana immediately taken here for Kofte. Very good matchup into the Ahri. You get a ton of push. You can actually then play in towards team fights very aggressively, and even just the opportunity then to try and play for some of these early dragons off that push in mid and bot is going to be very important here for Istanbul Wildcats.
Yeah, so obviously immediate difference from that last game. Tristana can get push into that Ahri. And it kind of changes the way some of the skill orders you have on Ahri as well. At some point, you kind of need Charm leveled up early to stop the jump on top of your head. You can cancel out that jump. If you stand away from the minion wave and you kind of predict that jump coming in, it's fairly easy to stop the Tristana jumping on you. But you lose wave push if you level up your Charm on level 2 instead of either your Q or your W if you started off with that Q level 1. So Kofte, a bit more agency in early game.
Again, no bans coming through here for Istanbul Wildcats because of the bug exploitation, so we are going to just wait until this timer goes down. I think the question mark, though, is, okay, with the Gwen ban, do we see a Kennen ban? Are we eyeing up the Sion again for GenX? I mean, this would definitely be a composition that works very, very well with the Sion, having that hyper carrying the Jinx in the back line. And then I think you just go for something like the Tam Kench. Just say, hey, look, Prime, you have been fantastic. Do not get me wrong. The engages that you had have been absolutely spectacular. But I think you got to take one for the team here, and we just go, we are playing for late game team fights. Let's put that pressure onto Istanbul Wildcats.
Romo going to be taken away here as they look to try and just kind of keep pinching Destroy off in that top side. Genax kind of leaning a lot more into those tank matchups, or at least weak side matchups, pretty much exclusively throughout this entire game. Did have that one Kennen game, or sorry, 2 Kennen games at the start, but after that was discovered and figured out, as you mentioned, haven't really been seeing it since.
So now Engage kind of locked in for Parus on the bot side. Very big comfort champion for the Wildcat support, allows him to roam out, get impact on the game very, very early. And now also gives you that counter pick for that top lane Destroy. We're still expecting that tank matchup from Genax coming through. There is the chance you lock in the Kennen blind instead. Renata, of course, that was banned away in that last game. Jinx, Renata, very, very good at hyper carrying, very good at counter engaging. When you have 280 carries on the other side, that ult hits the Tristana or the Xayah, they start using those very powerful auto attacks in their own team.
And the Renata can do quite well into the Nautilus as well, where you're able to get the handshake to interrupt the hook as well. So I think a lot of this is going to be on Prime to see what he can do. And again, as Nightmare was just saying, the counter engage that you get is absolutely fantastic. Istanbul Wildcats though, will it just be the Kennen in that top side? Are you just going to try and find some other carry for Destroy? Looks like Kennen will be the call.
Now, globally, we've seen Kennen struggle into Sion. When Destroy has struggled in individual matchups, it has affected his team. Game 1 of this series did feel like Genax and Lurox had the better end of things compared to their counterparts. Kennen does have some build diversity. You can go towards something like a Riftmaker or something like a Heartsteel even. We've seen that particularly in the PCS and the VCS globally. But Destroy still has the chance to maybe shut down everyone else but the Sion if he goes towards the AP teamfight build.
When the teams are locked, Istanbul Wildcats have themselves a pretty explosive mid lane combination. You jump in with the tree and the Tristana, you can get a hell of a lot of damage down very, very quickly, and it will need a lot of respect coming out here from SK Prime. After coming off of that loss, they are going to be looking at trying to just rewrite how they come into this one here, because again, they were in total control of game 3. Realistically, they should be 2-1 up. They got to find themselves something in the back pocket to make this one work.
I think a lot of the problems though that SK Prime had in game number 2 we're going to see here again. Istanbul Wildcats pushing mid, pushing bot. They were able to shut down the opportunity for Prime to roam, shut down Febi, and even though Febi's back on the Ahri, I just don't know how much control they're going to have against this Tristana in the mid lane. It feels like this could be the one where Istanbul Wildcats can put that nail into the SK Prime coffin.
I'll have to wait and see the last representative from the TCL, the #1 seed coming in, seeing if they can maybe make this one a rush to the finals on their debut in this tournament. SK Prime, they don't want to be the first DACH region to get knocked out. They want to try and put down a marker that the Prime League is back. But they have to get themselves up to a 2-2 scoreline.
Great that you mentioned how the regions have been doing as well, because of course, TCL coming in with a bit of a target on their backs, coming in with a lot of fanfare, a lot of expectations on them. They lost the team in play, and Supermassive bowed out at that point. They lost the team in groups. Foot bowed out there. I think particularly with the high expectations for the region, they would be looking at no less than finals for themselves.
And the question is, will SK Prime bow out, or will Bell be able to take them out at all? Because this guy's been absolutely fantastic in this series thus far. Starting off with the Cull, I like this into the Jinx matchup specifically because you just get to continually, like, very quickly pick up a lot of these early gold and then continue forward. And a lot of the times we'll see Jinx where she wants to try and like push wave, especially in the range matchup, reset on that third wave, and then be able to get a Cull for herself. So kind of calling out this at the moment, as Bell wants to see if he can at least keep toe-to-toe with the Jinx scaling.
Well, Destroy will get an early ward down. This is something that the Istanbul Wildcats have done pretty much consistently in terms of the early jungle pathing. Lurox has not been allowed to be a jungler in peace for the first few camps.
Quick note as well, it's going to be the Conqueror over on Destroy. Sometimes we see that Ahri for more early lane bullying. The Conqueror allows you to take much longer trades, which sometimes the Sion ends up winning because it's a Sion, especially when you get something like that Sunfire Cape. If he does go towards that, large amounts of extended damage.
And Oshin, I'm not going to be jealous of you in this game because I'm seen as someone Summoner Spell on Genax. I'm seeing the Summoner Spell book on Febi. You have a lot of different Summoner Spells that you're going to have to try and keep track of in these fights, especially when it gets towards these dragons with things like the Smites. It's going to be a very interesting game to see how this one pans out.
3600 Smite, baby. That's what we want to be seeing. That's the new definition of burst coming out here.
If only we had the Callista.
Oh, with the Ren. It'd be like a 6,000. Oh my god, it'd be insane.
I personally would love them all to take Ignite and just see how much damage you could do with those Ignites on your team. Sadly, Prime didn't take one themselves. We're not going to get ourselves a bonfire party with that one. Might see ourselves some early fanfare there around these early pushing lanes and these solo lanes, though, which are doing fairly well the first few levels from the Wildcats.
Wait to see if there's any kind of shenanigans. Again, not expecting much in the early game. Both these teams have shown they are just happy to let things go. Unless you got something like a Jarvan. And look, I'm just going to say, I've heard it from many different analysts. If you got a Jarvan, you got to be ganking. That's kind of what this champion does. He is so efficient with his Q and E combination that you have to make sure that you're coming out on top of these early skirmishes.
I still think you'll be able to get a lot of value in these team fights as well. Obviously, one of the big things about Xayah is that she has that ultimate, the Storm, to be able to avoid a lot of the engage that SK Prime are going for, but it doesn't matter. Once you're in the Cataclysm, you're stuck in there regardless, which is kind of hilarious because you're so far up in the air, but you don't get to go over the wall.
Z-axis.
Yeah, but it does mean that's a little bit difficult then for Bao to play these fights. If he takes a step forward, you'll have Febi and Lurox immediately trying to get in on top of him.
Level 3 hit by SK Prime's bot lane, but speaking of that Jarvan, actually before the Ahri Vi combination really rose to prominence last year, Ahri Jarvan was actually pretty okay when Jarvan was a little bit more meta, despite Ahri not necessarily being so herself, because Jarvan engages from a very long distance away. Ahri can still follow up with that, so Lurox going to have some extra play patterns to go towards. But you're absolutely right, Ashin, you would like to get the ball rolling, particularly when these early pushing lanes maybe overextend and give Lurox an option.
Will be spotted there. There was a little ward that on that lane brush, but sorry, river brush. But it is going to be Lurox kind of just recognizing, look, I'm stronger than the Maokai. I can bully him out a little bit. And honestly, I don't even think now that he knows he's been spotted, he doesn't need to be sneaky here. He literally just go through mid and get the top side scuttle as well.
Just have to be careful though. Destroy does have push there, and I know the Kofte won't really be in a position to try and help out here as the bounce back off of the third wave crash is starting to come through. But we'll have to see. Looks like Elramir happy enough to just give this one up for the moment and just go straight up towards his Krugs.
Okay, we're actually getting to a pretty important part of this mid lane matchup as well. So we're not going to be able to contest that. We'll go for a smite or something because we have the dematerializers here on the Ahri, getting to multiple ranks on that Q as well. Even though the Tristana very good at clearing out those waves, we will see the point now where Febi can pretty much just contest that push and at least stop Kofte being able to pin him to his own turret.
Yeah, unfortunately, just not having the last chapter early does make it a little bit difficult. Like, one of the big things in AD versus AP matchups is the fact that you just get to auto-attack, especially Tristana. Like,
cooldowns don't mean nothing.
Yeah, exactly.
That was the worst thing playing against Yasuo on release, because it's like, wow, this guy has infinite wave clear and no mana to waste.
And I think that's where, once you get the last chapter, definitely you'll just be able to clear out these waves, continuously toss it a Q, you're fine. But at least for the moment, Kofte, as Febi starts to run out of mana, should have some help there.
Okay, so important moment here as well. I see that Febi's clearing out this wave. Yes, Kofte can push this one in, but he has to then kind of be very careful with his lane management. You only have that one W. You can cancel it out with the charm. You can cancel it out with a flag and drag. That's why Parus has to walk up river as well, make sure that there isn't a play coming through. And one thing that we did say at the start of the day, Wildcats jungle mid support, pretty good at being on the same page early on.
Spotted out though, so good roam up there by Prime, making sure that his mid lane wasn't going to get ganked.
Yeah, they really want to try and go for the dragon here. Get pushing mid, lean that in, but here comes Prime.
Flashing, knocked up, charm down. They're going to get all the single target CC, but he brings him over the wall. That's not what you want to be doing, and now you're going to get yourself away, but you're not going to get bailed out. First blood to Kofte and SK Prime. They had him and they let him get away.
He sent them over the wall. Febi, all you had to do was just stand still, and you would have been fine. Even just jump back into your own squad, but trying to set up for the next play actually gives Elramir the escape, and he didn't even have to flash.
No.
FEBIVEN didn't even have time to switch over to the Ignite either before that play. You got first item tier 2 boots, and it's not like you got pen boots, it's not like you're building a damage at that point. Missing out on an important spike in power. Jarvan wants to gank early.
Oh, speaking of a little bit of damage being traded back here, and Genax might be forced to lose his flash if he's not too careful. 1 or 2 more Qs would be detrimental to the Sion, but I mean, you gain the flash out of the Kennen, but let's have a look at this one here, because again, it's just a little bit of panic.
And I do understand trying to go towards the early punch. Maokai is not particularly tanky in the early stages of the game. The one thing which I can say here for Febi and his defense is maybe because you can lose vision with the Ariel and it doesn't go off, maybe think, oh, I'll second guess it, I'll do the mind game, I'll get over the wall and get the reset, but he doesn't have enough damage, completely misjudges it.
It's also the fact that he just launches himself into Kofte, who's like, awesome, yeah, I'll take a kill. This sounds great. And now Febi going to be moving back in towards the mid lane. Again, good dragon control here for SK Prime at least, but we'll have to see if they can try and right the ship now a little bit when it comes towards these early plays.
So, just one last little bit on that before we move on to other things, but actually...
He's already dead.
This is outside. This is outside.
I don't know if you're thinking you're some kind of Ahri expert here, all right? Like,
because what happens is he holds himself to high standards. Those standards for GenX starting to drop a little bit lower. No ult.
He's got no ult. He does have flash. He has an ignite, but it ain't gonna do squat for him. He drops it in on the Kofte, who picks up another one, and this is now getting to a point where this Tristana is getting a little bit accelerated.
It's not only just the fact that you have the Tristana accelerated, the Kennen is as well. Elramir up here.
There's an ignite here. There's a chance if
It's so hard. Kofte's still in the wings, but yeah, as you were saying.
Yeah, exactly. And now you get the turret plates here for Destroy as well, so he's going to be in a great spot because Febi roamed. He doesn't get to punish mid. He also doesn't get to lean down into a very overextended bot side because of where the lane is at the moment. So just several things compounding now for SK Prime. Now Lurox is again using the fact that, hey, look, Istanbul Wildcats have to reset off these plays. I'll try and look for the objective, and we'll give a bit of gold back. But again, it's just cleaning up this early stage for SK Prime needs to happen.
Ultimate hit by the Maokai could be important. Run the next play of the game. He's stuck here alone in River right now. Maybe waiting on Parus to reach up. Don't think the timing's going to be great for them.
They're going to get the Rift Herald, but are they going to be able to get out? That is the question. Flash hook in on top of FEBIVEN, who's trying to see if he can run away, but you just can't. Resets for Kofte. Lurox gets himself out. You trade 1 kill for the Rift Herald, but that Rift Herald's kind of it's like an investment in a company. It may go up, but it also may go down. Oh, we're going to see the Slicing Maelstrom used here on the top side. Destroy does not have flash, will get knocked up as well. Cataclysm down, and they dunk in on top of them. We are going to see Elramir looking for a flash over. They're looking to try and make this one work. They're trying to see if they can trade this one back. They'll hook them in, and Kofte's there to take it all back. It is a trade here at the start of this play, but GenX cannot fight up against this Tristana. She's getting too big, too fast.
Very strange committal to that play after the cannon was already dead. I get that it's a 1-for-1. I think the bonus from that is that you stop a Herald being dropped as quickly. Of course, death times at this point in the game, not the largest thing in this fight. I thought the timing was going to be a bit off for the Wildcats, but FEBIVEN caught out of position, can't Spirit Rush his way to safety. They pick up one there. Is this fight afterwards, which I'm a little bit weirded out by, because that Herald, I don't know if it's worth denying it immediately from Wildcats.
It's also just because there was nobody there. Everyone had moved into the enemy jungle already to try and steal away some of the buffs, so just giving a ton of control. And Elramir as well, just getting picked off immediately. Very, very strange. Now, looks like at least you will get some control of that top side. 4 kills onto Kofte is nothing to scoff at all. You'll have to see now if this Tristana can be the big carry in this game. Again, just push mid, roam sides.
Yeah, and particularly that gold on Kofte going to really bring you ahead of the curve of the game, particularly when you're into a sign. You want your carries to be ahead at that point. You're not going to have the luxury of itemizing towards 1 defensive stat for this sign. You're playing as double AD outside of your lane matchup, and that's something which is going to be very difficult for SK Prime to deal with. They only have the 1 damage loss themselves in the Jinx.
Again, Lurox trying to see if he can maybe funnel a bit of gold here into this Jinx, but I don't know if Keduii is going to be able to be in a position to kind of go for the Kofte moving down as well. Yeah, it's just too difficult. Yes, Lurox will get himself some gold, but 350 onto the Jarvan is not the most ideal situation, especially when you're starting to lose out on all these different positions on the map. I will say FEBIVEN is moving down, has flash, has ignite, goes in with a charm. Ooh. They get the handshake to stop the hook from hitting the wall. They're moving down on the bow, who is going to be able to use his ultimate to keep himself safe and clear the wave.
That was so close to Parus making it out of there, and it would have been an absolute disaster if he had for SK Prime. Kofte on the mid lane turret, he'd already moved back to mid, so Febi needed that play to work, and it does just about, but gives a lot more gold once more to Kofte. That's a what was it? He was, yeah, 700 gold, I think he just made off the plays that he's been able to roam around for.
Oh, taking a bit of a movement here. They still have the Spirit Rush. Don't know if he does or doesn't. We'll see if they want to go for it. That is the question. There's going to be the jump after the Spirit Rush has been used. And yeah, Kofte kind of knew all the time he was pretty safe.
Yeah, doesn't have to blow the flash, doesn't have to blow the ult. Was fairly confident that he would end up surviving that. Even has the teleport to get back to lane. And you can see FEBIVEN really trying to force the plays at this point. I think I understand why. You know, we have seen the game start to fall a little bit away from SK Prime from a couple of mistakes here and about. But even with the play working out bot lane, still 2,000 gold individually behind with a build which is not going to bring you that much damage.
That is the gold lead.
that is the gold lead. And it's quite scary at this point.
Yeah, that is a moment or two as we can see them now TPing back towards that mid lane. Has got the Kraken Slayer alongside his AD carry who's picked up a Gale Force. So, I mean, these AD carries are online. You're going to pick up this second Drake. It's not going to be a Chem Soul, so it's going to be a valuable one regardless of how you look at it. And
that's the thing. It's so difficult now for SK Prime to try and contest this because, I mean, Kofte's huge, as you rightly pointed out, about having his mythic finish as well. 2 minutes now until the Herald. It feels like you should be able to put some decent control on the map now as Kofte as well, thanks to the fact that you just have a Kraken Slayer. A few pop shots of Febi is going to work wonders for you.
Did anyone else just see the jungle pet just like leapfrogging around the screen there?
Yeet!
It was like, go Bulbasaur! Flies into the enemy roadmap. I think a sapling hit somewhere.
Zoomies are real.
7 AM Zoomies. Where are you? We go now! But I mean, look, it's Istanbul Wildcats kind of in control right now because you talked about having, you know, the control over the dragons. They've got their first one, which means there's no stacking here for SK Prime. It is a Cloud Soul, but you would love that kind of soul for something like the Kennen and the Maokai to get you in a better position. And these are things that are going to be, you know, again, hotly contested for SK Prime. They got to find a way in.
But this is the problem. SK Prime don't have those moments where they can really try and make it work. We talked about keeping Febi in check. Kofte, phenomenal job this game of actually being the one to roam, not giving Febi the opportunities, and on bot side you don't push, so you can't really get Prime unlocked. The one play they tried to make went sideways with Febi dying, and now Lurox, I don't know.
Oh, double knock up. They're going to use the Cataclysm. Kofte keeps his flash because he knows he doesn't have to use it. There's going to be a hostile takeover to try and get some more CC. They haven't burnt down anybody just yet, and everyone gets out scot-free.
That's heartbreaking. The Berserk actually sent Maokai back under the tower to safety, yeah. And it was just like, all right, cool, I'll take this one then. But nice job by SK Prime, right? They get a lot of those ultimates out of the way. They get the flash coming through from Elramir as well. Nice attempt at a pick, and that's exactly what they need to do if they want to try and slow down the pace of this game and get some control back.
And I'm not going to read into this too heavily, but you know, thinking after that last game and how heartbreaking it was, I think SK Prime really needed a game to settle themselves again. It feels like they're snatching and grabbing a little bit too much. It feels like they're really trying to get these individual plays. They're not necessarily leading into big macro wins after that point. We can see that second Herald is spawning just now, and with SK Prime throwing all of those abilities out just beforehand, they don't have them to fight for that now.
Absolutely agree with you. I love that you bring that up as well. It's that you just use the Cataclysm, the hostile takeover, the Spirit Rush. Spirit Rush might be up just in fair time for it if they were to delay a little bit, but I mean, it's just such a difficult situation now for SK Prime to be in. So you can see already they don't, you know, there's no real pressure here from Istanbul Wildcats. They can just send over Kofte, who is an AD carry in his own right, and just kind of say, yeah, cool, Bao, you can stay bot side, you soak up all that XP. He's 20 CS up. He's looking fantastic on his own. And this is the thing that makes the Istanbul Wildcats so scary, is that they can kind of shift their priorities to what they need to do in the moment in the game.
It's also just the fact they have so much control when it comes towards vision, like very well setting up vision everywhere that they want to try and move to. Makes it very difficult for any sort of contest to come through from SK Prime, especially as we start to move forward. You're going to have Destroy, who's going to be coming in on flanks, Elramir, who can set up with these big ultimates, and just buy so much space for this double AD carry comp to just rip you apart. Two item spikes here, once the Istanbul Wildcats hit it, and how quickly they're hitting them as well is going to make it so difficult to deal with.
Yeah, and it feels like the next couple of fights of the game, that's where things start to go into real overdrive for Wildcats if they walk away, even with slim advantages. Getting themselves that Herald for that power play in mid, SK Prime, they're going to have to dig deep, use their veterancy, use their experience to try and settle the ship.
Well, surely we'll get to bop into that mid lane. Funny enough, actually, don't think it was needed because it looks like they were going to get the Demolish proc off of Kofte anyway, but the second charge will do another good job, and that's going to be an hour and a half of damage, minute 35 until the next dragon spawns. And What's all happening? Again, it's kind of where's the angle? You know, we talked about, you said it, Doug, in terms of champ select, it's going to be very similar issues for SK Prime comparatively to game number 2, where you're just kind of like figuring out how do you go about this? Where do you look to try and kind of find those answers or find those questions to throw at Istanbul Wildcats who have all the answers?
Especially now the mid lane turret's down, it opens up Kofte to just push mid, immediately try and rotate down towards the bot lane here. You just leave Destroy on his own, he'll be able to pick up this top lane without much of an issue. But if you can start then to crack up bot lane turret, put some pressure on Keduii, even look for a dive, that's where you're really going to see this game break open. Won't do it now for a little bit though. You have a minute until this next dragon, so it feels like focus will be on get mid control with Bow, and then see if you can start to continue the dragon stacking here for Istanbul Wildcats.
And obviously, it does feel like control of the game very much in favor of the Wildcats as it stands. They've got winning side lanes, they have winning everything, honestly, it feels like at this point. The real shining light, I think, it's probably going to be Lurox looking for one of those clutch critical engages, and engage over the wall on a patch of vision. Lurox, no stranger to sadly bowing out in this level of competition. Saw himself in a 5-game loss to Prime League rivals Unicorns, and with the Unicorns last split, lost to the Heretics in a 5-game series. They'd love to at least reach those 5 games. Lurox, he has the tools to maybe find the engage.
Just going to throw in his Q to see if he can poke down a little bit there on the Parus, but with the shielding coming out from the Nautilus, he should be relatively safe. And that's the thing now, you kind of have to fight at this. You don't really have a choice. They brought GenX down. He's got an exhaust. There's actually 2 exhausts available here for SK Prime.
There he goes.
They're going to get the handshake, and that's Parus dead. You've had to use the Cataclysm, and that means it's not available for something like the Kennen or the Xayah. You have to make sure that GenX doesn't go down here. That could be detrimental to your team. There's going to be the hostile takeover to try and separate everybody. They will get the ultimate out of the Sion as the Maokai goes down. Now you can see Bao getting exhausted, gonna let the feathers go flying as he looks to try and turn this fight around. It looks like it's gonna be SK Prime coming out of here with 2 clean kills, but they haven't taken the objective just yet.
Okay, just as we asked for it, Lurox does manage to find the pick. They did, however, have to use both of their spellbook exhausts onto Bao and not the Kennen, so that's not available for a flash ult from Destroy.
Prime has a 3rd one though, that's the thing. Prime has the 3rd exhaust available in the back pocket. They can't exactly know who used what, but your health bars are already so low, and with the death timers being so short, you can't go for this fight.
There really are a lot of summons to keep track of.
There are.
It's a curse.
That's why I said I wasn't going to. But it does mean, regardless, Elramir are going to be able to respawn, going to be able to move in towards this dragon, and it will still be Istanbul Wildcats. And honestly, props to SK Prime. They played that fight incredibly well. Lurox finding the quick pick onto Parus, flashes back out. They wait for the timers to come back. They go in again with Lurox, but unfortunately, just not confident with Destroy having flash up, of settling themselves in that pit, especially with how immobile some of this backline is.
I mean, it feels so awful as well for SK Prime. You got 2 kills and you lost a turret and a dragon after it. It just feels so bad. But again, look, it's a great way to kind of burst out Parus right straight off the fight.
It's pretty awkward to say, you know, this is about best case scenario. They find themselves a quick pick. It's sadly not onto one of the big carries, but at least they get rid of some of that engaged stack, which would have made it much easier for Bao and Destroy to isolate out a single target and kill them beyond that point. For SK Prime, at least winning the fight, getting a 2 for none, I think that's better than what you could have expected for them from this Drake set.
Yeah, just a little unfortunate there with the Prime ultimate as well. The fact that you didn't manage to really connect on Istanbul Wildcats. I think you got baited a little bit by Elramir going in. Still though, SK Prime looking for another pick here.
I mean, this is kind of what they're reduced to for the moment until they can get GenX to come back in with their team. You see, Elramir does have flash and ultimate if they want to try and go for it. With his Aftershock, though, being procced with the Bramble Smash makes himself very, very tanky in the short term.
But this is the thing, as long as they can just keep mid push, keep top push, and just start to fish for these picks, it's just about trying to keep Istanbul Wildcats honest. If they can't push forward, if they can't group up, well then you can slow down the pace of the game. Buy time for Keduii to get to that late point.
Oh, he's on a master tier flank and he knows there's no vision on him whatsoever. Keduii maybe getting caught out here. They're going to try and jump in on top of him, but the trap's right in front of the gates. Does stop any more of a push forward there. I like the idea from Destroy, but I also like the fact that SK Prime did not blow any of their own summoners as well.
Discipline, name of the game in that one. Keduii, very important for him to keep those summoners available. Feels like he is really the damage source. He needs to be the one taking over these fights.
It does highlight a very big problem for SK Prime right now, though. They don't have a huge amount of vision control. The fact that Destroy was able to sneak his way in. You can see on top side as well, a huge amount of the vision does belong to the Istanbul Wildcats, and that's why at the moment, SK Prime not feeling very happy about trying to push in. Thank you, observers, you can see there's just not a huge amount that SK Prime have available.
come in now. 21 minutes, we're just a little bit underneath it. We are starting to see second item completions. Kofte is huge right now. Bloodthirster finished up, going towards that. Lord Dominic's regards as well. Bao has his Navori Quick Blade, so he's putting out significant. And you have the Shadow Flame here for Destroy, so you're looking at significant damage coming out from all carries of Istanbul.
Yeah, particularly with Kofte picking up the Bloodthirster, it means that particularly when you've got the Everfrost Banshees version of the Ahri, you don't have assassination threat there. They can't go out of your vision control either. Wildcats, they're bringing in SK Prime into that pit.
Yeah, Parus playing bouncer for the moment. FEBIVEN goes in and they want the fight. They don't want the Baron. There's nowhere for you to go, Lurox. You have to try and go for that check. You couldn't just let the Baron go. And now, without a jungler, I mean, SK Prime, they got to go for a fight.
They got to try something here. Jenax trying to see if he can get in position to cut Kofte off. He's so low. They want to try and get control of the pit. Bow! Knocked up.
He's knocked up, hit by a zap. Do they want to try and fully commit to this? The hook is good. They got Destroy on a flank, and he does just that. Keduii has nowhere to be except the grey screen. A Baron, a couple of kills, and Istanbul, they're just playing with their food.
For all the discipline we praise Keduii for when Destroy looked for him in that mid lane, he doesn't get to use the flash at that point. The hook not reacted to, goes down. Baron buff claimed, and honestly, SK Prime against this Baron, this could be the end of their EMEA Masters run.
Parus sitting, waiting over the wings, seeing if maybe he could fish for a hook, but he's just going to back away. Baron nicely picked up by Istanbul Wildcats. Great call here just to realize how much they could do. Immediately turn on towards Lurox. No real vision there to spot out Parus. And then again, like they're trying to move in here with Jenax to see if they can cut them out, separate them, but it means that Keduii doesn't really have a front line to destroy. Cops it immediately, goes in on towards the SK Prime AD carry.
I see him.
Even just walks the whole way around.
Yeah.
The secret agent with the microphone catches them out again.
I mean, I thought it was going to be like a flash over. They don't quite see him when he gets right in the back line, but no, he literally just walked into it.
It feels like they're just using that hanging threat, saying, you have to contest this this Baron, just in the way that Lurox had to walk into that river. It sucks, but you have to. Giving up that Baron, especially when you've got so many good sieges, so much ability to throw out a Maokai ult when these waves start crashing into the tower, that should be a death knell. SK Prime, they're up against it.
They are indeed, and with Kofte just able to throw down so much damage here on nearly three items, I will say. He is just going to be able to shred through turrets. Jumps over as well. Never going to really be caught out by that with the buffer on the rocket jump. And now, I mean, what do? You've got mid lane being pushed in, top lane being pushed in, and you have to go as five. You cannot really function as a team unless you are 5-man together.
Which means Destroy gets time alone with the top lane turret. Bao gets to shove in mid, and the second that Kofte realizes that you've tried to move to cover the top lane, but he's going to be able to get the bot lane turret in. SK Prime, it is very quickly falling apart, and they really don't look like they know how to try and slow it down.
It's going to be a slow, methodical way of just taking away all of these turrets, all of these outer structures. Dragon spawns, you take that too. You have a minute left on the Baron, which means you got to figure out when and where you're going for it. But I will say, and look, it's a very caster thing for me to do. It's not over till it's over. No, we did that earlier. But the series might be over if we're not careful. But I have seen Jinxes do crazy things if given the time of day. Now, I will say that it is a long shot. You are looking at a Hail Mary down your fourth quarter. You need 7 points, and you are throwing it 80 yards down the pitch for that to kind of work. It doesn't really work, and that's why it's called a Hail Mary, but it could.
Good. One of the things which tends to help with something like that is when you've got something like an Elder Dragon on the table, that's not the case. It's not like SK Prime can look for a miracle steal on one of those objectives. They're trying to go for a bit of a cross map, one of the few available to them. They've hardly been able to step outside their base, but Wildcats, they're there, ready to respond, even with the vision being claimed by SK Prime. They're not really able to capitalize, and here's the Maokai ult.
Maokai ult does get used. Lurox ends up hitting the ult twice, I believe, at the end of that. So we'll see if he's kind of doing anything there. They're trying to push them away, but again, it's just so difficult right now for SK Prime to get for anything. Even though they pushed everybody up the top side, they're going to try and do the exact same play this time, though. Parus has himself a stopwatch. He does not get hit by the ultimate off the Jinx at the end of it, and now they're kind of running away from this. Lurox needs to stay alive. A flash from Keduii as they try to push everyone into this hostile takeover. It will only land on the one, but the one is the one they got. Bao flashing forward, or ghosting forward, I should say, to try and get something, and now they can turn their sights back onto the very tanky man that will be going into a fit of rage as he's been taken out and killed as the Jenax is going down. This again, just nothing else you can do. You try to go for a fight, but you just don't have the resources.
SK Prime tried to drag Istanbul Wildcats into the choke point, try to find the moment where Jenax can hit with the big ultimate. You can come over with that massive hostile takeover, but everything just doesn't quite work out. The pick doesn't quite work out because he goes golden. Then as they start to move in here, they're trying to bait them into the small choke point right as Gen X goes, but Istanbul Wildcats walk away. They walk away from both ults and it's gone.
Oh, look alive! Kofte almost went down there, I believe, but doesn't quite go down just yet, as we can see the kind of remnants of them coming in. A lot is happening on that little picture-in-picture right there. A lot was used. You actually saw a hell of a lot of damage coming out there from FEBIVEN.
That bush didn't know what hit it.
Yeah.
Story has something against grass
Struck
types,
by lightning, going like, what did I do?
Well, but FEBIVEN, I think we're seeing once again that FEBIVEN is trying to take the game into his own hands. Same with Lurox. Again, such veteran members on this SK Prime team. Lurox played since 2017. FEBIVEN played since all the way back in 2014, 2015 as well. These are players with some history to them. They'd love to have a bit more of the star-studded result from this tournament, but it is looking oh so difficult. It's very hard to find these players, as you've been saying, though. The game is not quite over. It's just very difficult.
Jinx is very close. Very, very close to finishing that IE. And look, there it is. That's all of a sudden finished up. So you now have a 3-item Jinx. I mean, look, I'm not saying that the Xayah is not going to be relevant, but I'm saying this is probably as strong as you've been on the Jinx for a while.
Yeah, I'm looking at the Tristana. It's very close to also finishing her IE, you know.
Alongside the Bloodthirster.
Yeah, plus, you know, the extra level as well, about to tick over to that level 16. Like, Tristana is huge in this one, and that's where I think the big difference maker is that you don't just have one person you have to deal with. It's both Bao and Kofte, very good at the self-peel, trying to find access to this backline of Istanbul Wildcats. It's going to be so difficult, and it has just been picks for SK Prime that they've been trying to go for, and Istanbul Wildcats stacked up as this 5-man group, making it so hard for them to really find anything.
Parus sitting over on the brush, knowing that he has vision and they do not. Baron has spawned. There could be a TP from Destroy. There it is off the flank. So it's not quite behind everybody just yet, and they've got decent wards to kind of catch it out. They know he's coming, and they can start to walk away. They know exactly where this Kennen is, and that could be huge.
So currently, no exhausts here for SK Prime. None on the spellbooks, and the one on Prime is on cooldown. SK Prime, you're playing with fire here.
They are playing with fire, but they know exactly where Destroy is. If he tries to move anywhere in that bottom half, who's good defensive vision, but because you have defensive vision, it means you don't have forward vision.
Yeah, Istanbul starting to move over. Destroy, trying to play off towards the side, has that flash to try and get in onto it. Parus, we've seen him hit these before. Was onto Lurox last time.
Yeah, we're going to see the ultimate come out. Gen X trying to tank up, but he's just getting taken out right now. He will be killed straight away. That's a 4-man knockup from the Nautilus ultimate as we try to go back in on top of this fight. Destroy, trying to see if he can make the damage work, and he does get onto Prime. They can finally take out the charm, but that's going to be a huge charm. Can they keep this Jinx alive? They cannot, because just like Dagda said, it's not one threat, it's multiple threats. The Istanbul Wildcats are smashing SK Prime.
There's no waves currently being built up, but the Wildcats, they're going to take their prize in kill gold, and then the Baron itself. They'll probably claim themselves a soul at the same time. FEBIVEN just being delayed on the death. No other way out of that situation. How the heck does this come to be? It feels like SK Prime once again, the feet just held over the fire, being invited into the river. Gen X sadly separated from his team.
Yeah, and this is where again, it looks like it's going relatively okay. Prime, fantastic ultimate across here, hitting onto 3 members. But Destroy, this actually isn't the best of ults. Doesn't really catch anyone. Lurox actually launching himself in. The charm is great, but Keduii just barely caught by Parus. I'm so shocked that that didn't hit Febi. But it doesn't matter. With Kofte jumping forward, both of them were going to go down.
Not going to lie, I feel like it should have hit Febi, because then it maybe Keduii could fire out a couple more auto attacks.
Not
as the 3 items. Well, I wonder if FEBIVEN should have just tanked it. At that point, maybe there's a chance that Keduii could get excited again, run away, but was not to be. Doesn't even have flash for the next few minutes as well to give himself a better shot at the next fight coming through. You haven't hit your 4 items, and as you were saying before this, Dagda, Kofte has hit that Infinity Edge on the Tristana now.
And I mean, even though, you know, that was kind of the Hail Mary from SK Prime, it almost came out for them, but you've got to now deal with a stopwatch on Destroy. You got to deal with a stopwatch on Bao, so even if he does get caught out again, he has that extra little lifeline. So again, it's just more and more barriers as Istanbul Wildcats. You just take more and more control.
Yeah, the fights are just hard for Keduii to really try and play, especially when you saw in the last one. He's even being knocked away by like Kofte's ultimates and things like this. Trying to position yourself forward when you've got Destroy who's coming in on flanks, just not being able to get to these objectives first is making it so tough. Now Bao starting to move up towards his top side. They realize it's just Gen X is here, so if you can get Kofte onto this top lane turret, he's going to be in a great spot to keep that pressure up.
We'll start the siege. Minute 37 left on this Baron buff. It's actually kind of difficult to get the full thing going here. The Jinx does have a very good time of just kind of clearing these waves. It's not that easy for Istanbul to break up in the space.
Yeah, that's why they have to potentially use an economic Maokai ult, where you're just going to throw it at one of these side lane towers from an angle, because the Elramir is in that kind of position, which means that even though the Jinx can wave clear, could be in a bit of danger from the Siege and the CC.
We might just see Istanbul Wildcats now trying to put themselves in towards finals. The new region wanting to shake things up in the EMEA Masters. TP now into the mid lane. They know that they have got this game in their hands, and can they close it out?
Can they close it out? Lurox going in, immediately has to flash out after using Demacian standard. There's going to be that ultimate you talked about there, Nymera, trying to take down this turret, and they will do just that. Prime nearly goes down, eventually he will fall. Keduii gets himself a bailout, but it's just not going to be enough to keep him alive. The Istanbul Wildcats, they waited until their prey had nowhere else to go, and they pounced right on top of the throne of SK Prime. The TCL will have a representative in the final in their first year of EMEA Masters.
Bow down to the AD carry king of Turkey. Bow on this Xayah has looked unstoppable. The Wildcats have looked unstoppable.
And here it is, the final Nexus explosion as the Istanbul Wildcats put themselves into the finals of the 2023 Spring EMEA Masters.
A fantastic performance from the Istanbul Wildcats. Game 1 goes awry. They come back swinging in Game 2. Desperately hold on to Game 3 to clutch it back. And with ease, I mean, they made this game look so damn clean.
And on the other side now, you know, talk about it from the Wildcats' point of view. SK Prime, still their best result in a very long time for this organization,
absolutely.
for this ERL as well. Now, the Prime League does have a second team in the semi-finals. They had 2 shots of potentially getting towards that finals. Now we know one of the finalists will have to be now a revenge match if the Unicorns were to make it there.
No one region final.
But it is going to be, it's going to be a heck of a battle for them tomorrow, though. And the Wildcats now get to sit and see who joins them.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's going to be a pretty tough battle no matter who you kind of, end up going against. But I think a lot of teams are going to be looking at this and it's like, Istanbul Wildcats, I think the big one for me is always going to be that Game 3. By all measures and all accounts, they should have lost that game. And it did feel like, obviously in a 5-game series, the third game can be so pivotal. But it really was. It felt like at that point, SK Prime just kind of lost who they were, lost how they kind of want to go about it. And Istanbul Wildcats were happy to take whatever came in front of them.
I do think that it was kind of solved in draft, though. I think especially as we got into Game 4, it felt like Istanbul Wildcats had downloaded them, right?
Yep.
We thought, look, we can give Febi the pick, but if we take the Maokai, right, we now got this AD mid that continue to push. We don't really care if you go for this area. We're just going to insta-lock the Xayah every single game. Get push and bot. Now Prime can't move, your mid can't move. This trio that we were highlighting can't do anything. And Istanbul Wildcats can just play the game as they like.
And I think we really saw the SK Prime really good when they're snowballing, when they're ahead of the game, when actually maybe those damage factors get evened up by just a large amount of gold. When you're at this level of competition, when you're at this stage in the tournament, you don't get those same margins of error.
No, you really don't. And I think the big thing now is that, look, for SK Prime, like you said, it's still one of their best finishes in a very, very long time. They can kind of leave with their heads up high, but great from Istanbul Wildcats. And again, even though we expected them to be there, it definitely, definitely had to work a little bit harder. And taking out some big names as well. They took out LDLC. They've taken out a SK Prime now as well. They're coming out much stronger.
Yeah, I think just for SK Prime, it's a little bit heartbreaking. Like, summer 2019 was the last time we got to see these guys really in finals. And then, we even saw Big was kind of the last Doc representative that ended up picking up that victory for them. That was back with, Carzy on the team and White Knight and all those guys. Was hoping that maybe we'd see it, but not this year. Well, not this place, I should say.
True. But that's enough time from us. Thank you for watching us on the caster desk. We're going to send it over to the analyst desk as they bring up the Victory Lap.
Thank you very much, guys. Amazing cast today. Welcome to the Victory Lap, where the Istanbul Wildcats are the first team of this EMEA Masters to join the finals. I want to say clean series from them. No, expected series from them, as you said. Trouble, giving up the first game, downloading the opponent, and then taking straight to the victory.
I think it was a very similar series to their LDLC series. LDLC and SK Prime said very similar fundamental issues where it was being a little bit lazy where it came to vision, didn't set up their objectives properly.
Yeah.
Wildcats instantly identified that in game number 1, which game number 1 is always the warm-up game. And then they just played slow with patience. Yes, they were having mistakes, but their setups were proper. Flanks from Destroyer were absolutely phenomenal. And Bao also did not let us down with his performance for another time.
Yeah, I just feel like they had a really good read on this series and on SK Prime in general, where it felt like if SK Prime don't have the correct kind of agency tools for themselves, they're just completely hamstringed. And Wildcats were very happy, like Trouble says, to just kind of sit there, let them play whatever game they can attempt to play, and then just play on windows to punish them. And I feel like SK just couldn't really adapt game to game. It felt like maybe you could argue, obviously, the game 3, you know, being that far ahead. And there's, you know, there's League of Legends is a nuanced thing, right? If they have a different soul, maybe they can end the game. If, you know, maybe they don't grief 1 or 2 times in this kind of situation where you're allowing so much to be pulled back for Wildcats in front of a Baron. It can obviously go differently, but I think just generally the read from Wildcats this series was just significantly better than what SK Prime had.
Absolutely. Unexpected from this team and their experience, and also the region itself. We'll talk about this a bit later, but for now, I want us to focus on Game 4 and what a one-sided Game 4, especially when you think of the mid-jungle and how quickly this Tristana was activated.
Absolutely. I feel like it was all about, in the very beginning, the Lurox, he was trying his hardest on this Jarvan to make plays, but the trio, again, from Wildcats was there from the beginning. The fact that in the draft, they had the Xayah into the Jinx, they knew they were going to lose prior through the mid lane, so they put their priority lane in mid, so Elramir can make plays together with Parus and the mid laner. They accelerated that Tristana, and then they just kept moving her around the map like a chess piece. Every time they needed help top, they'd shove Tristana top, they'd get the Rift held. Every time they needed help bot to shove a wave, they would shove Tristana bot lane, grab the dragon, move back mid. So it was just a great game overall of just macro movement on the map and never letting go of tempo.
But I feel like you had options on SK Prime's hands in terms of composition and how easy it was in theory to maneuver. I think of Jinx, for instance.
Yeah, no, I mean, I feel like the options were there for SK Prime in that sense, being able to move around the Jinx. Like, oftentimes you hear like the phrase demolitionist thrown around for the AD carries, and Jinx typically can be that, but I feel like when you don't necessarily get priority in the mid lane, it becomes so hard to even have any kind of strong lane assignments on a consistent basis. And for me, again, I feel like the Jarvan actually just has such limited options in what he can actually attack in the early game, right? Ashin actually picked on it inside the cast, where it's like, you're playing Jarvan, you want to gank in the early game. How do you gank a Kennen who's laning against a Sion? It's so difficult. How do you gank a Tristana who can just rocket jump out of the combo? It's just a really, really hard wall to kind of be placed in. And if you don't have prio to at least maybe play on objectives on spawn, it felt like Lurox was really caged in, and Wildcats were happy to take advantage of the fact that from the side of SK Prime, they're effectively playing without a jungler. It's not even his fault.
And props to them, honestly, for their draft and creativity throughout the entire series, and how, despite being playing on red side mostly, they were able to come up with ideas. And I think about the last game also, them missing out on the last 2 bans, they still had the best composition for them, and they used it the best way.
I was just going to say that when you lose 2 bans, and they're usually the secondary ones, the top lane is the one that suffers. Destroy did not suffer in this particular series, and I'm honestly so happy, not just to see him shine on his typical picks like the Kennen, the Gwen, the Rumbles, whatever, like the AP top laners, but he brought out a Fiora that made a difference in the side lane. Every time SK Prime was trying to pull a play, Destroy was taking a turret, he was taking a structure on the other side of the map. And it became a problem to the point where they just ended up finding the Nexus just because Destroy had created that opening with Fiora. So I think it shows a lot on the versatility of, yes, we have that monster's rat with the Kennen up top, but he can play Fiora, he can play the Gnar, heck, he can possibly pull out a Sion or any tank in the finals.
Yeah, it was really impressive to see how creative they've been across the board during the entire series. I want to talk about the momentum shifts maybe, because even though SK was always behind, and even though we knew that their macro fundamentals were not on point compared to the TCL team, how heartbreaking is it to lose the Game 3 that way?
I've been a victim of it myself.
I mean, yeah, you know.
So it's really rough. It's one of those things that can really, you know, break a mental in a way. If you know, you get so close, and then, you know, again, all of these small, realistically very silly things that become very consequential to the outcome of a game. I think it's one where, you know, you kind of have a similar scenario where it happens in the LEC finals that just went by, where Mad go down 2 games, but they come back out on stage, they're laughing, right? They're very happy, and the mental is still there. They're still ready to just, you know, slog through another 3 games to win. And I think even in a best of 5, where it's not necessarily you're 2-0 down, you're 1-0, it's a best of 3 effectively, but you lose like that, it makes you wonder, okay, well, if we can't win in that game, how the hell are we supposed to win in a game again where we might get the same lead? And in that case, you start to second guess yourself. You start to actually question your decisions. And I'm not saying necessarily that SK Prime did that, but perhaps it's one of those things where in draft, all of a sudden it's like, oh, maybe I'm not so confident playing this pick. Or then once you get to the game, it's like, okay, can we pull the trigger on this or no? And in some cases, throughout the series, they did. But in this game, it felt like they were very limited because of those kind of factors, potentially.
I feel like it's kind of heartbreaking for the organization as a whole.
Yeah.
Even taking it from their LEC run, right? No one expected SK to do well in the LEC, especially in winter.
Yeah.
They pulled out a really good run, gets cut short later on in playoffs. In spring again, they try to pull out a really good run, gets cut short. Right here, so promising with an insane roster, huge names in the academy team. Gets cut short right before the finals. It feels like the org is trying to reach this year, and somebody just slaps their hands right off right before that final step where they can get that victory. And honestly, if anything, it's a testament of don't give up, because SK did not have good results for the past years in LEC or Academy, but this year they've shown that they've put a lot of work behind the scenes to find the right people that will facilitate the players in the team. So if anything, it was a pretty good showing coming this far.
Hope in summer, for sure. But with this caliber of player and the experience they have, I was expecting a bit more and a bit more discipline, maybe.
Yeah, but it's a tough bar to jump. I think you have to also just kind of take into perspective they are playing a TCL team.
Definitely.
Right? And at the end of the day, the TCL region is one that have clearly shown to us throughout this tournament that they are going to be, even though they didn't make it to the top 8, like, FUT were a scary team as well. So I feel like, you know, yeah, it's going to suck. You just lost a series in the semifinals. But head high with that level of experience, you would expect them to return back in summer with a whole bunch of confidence to try and make this rerun happen again.
I actually love how you mentioned it's a TCL team. Guys, if the format hadn't changed this year, this team would be going to MSI right now.
We see them at Worlds at MSI.
They would be going to Worlds, they would be playing to play in MSI, they would be playing against the best of the best of the best. So even though we're mentioning, you know, LEC names on the side of SK Prime, these guys would be playing on the international stage. So honestly, we asked the question at the very beginning in general for TCL, hey, you've played internationally. Technically, this is a quote-unquote downgrade for who you're playing against. Can you surpass this hurdle?
Yeah.
So far, the answer is yes.
Yeah, completely, because TCL as a region on Twitter, among fans, among everyone, we all expected this region to perform. We all I remember Adam sitting on this couch just before the beginning of the EMEA Masters saying, yeah, no, it's not going to be for LFL this time. Watch and learn from TCL. And this is exactly what we saw from this region so far.
Seems like Adam
He
in
knew-
Giga Chat
yeah,
again. I've got to say, he's come out with a lot of base takes this year. I'm like, you know, top lane is useless into TCL. He's on top of it. And I mean, he's just right, I feel like, this time around. And yeah, I think they're just proving through and through that TCL will be a region moving forward that, you know, we can expect them to make it to top 4, to make it, you know, consistent finals runs, or at the very least just always be a region that is contesting whoever's, you know, the traditional strong regions, whether it be LFL, whether, you know, we've seen half a prime resurgence now in this tournament. Maybe that happens again next tournament, and TCL will be on the opposite side of that bracket.
I'm really looking forward to seeing what we are going to see from them in the finals and who's going to join them. Also, Trouble, any prediction on to tomorrow's series? Heretics looking at the back-to-back title.
This is
They
so
won
difficult.
Summer last year, but what about the Unicorns?
This is so difficult. Both of these teams went into 5-game series.
Yeah.
They were just about to get eliminated, but they made it through. And honestly, they both look extremely strong. For Unicorns of Love, I think they heavily rely on whether Peach, their jungler, is on a good day or not to play the whole mid jungle. But on the other side for Heretics, I'm like, who stops Flacken?
Yeah, right?
Because it's not about this guy just getting ahead from laning phase. This guy gets no resources and then pops off every single fight. So their stylistic is so different. That's why I'm so excited to see which AD carry pops off, because they both heavily rely on their AD carries, but they don't necessarily play for them.
No, I agree, and I think taking a step back even further, for me, a lot of it's going to come down to draft. I know it's a very cliche answer, but I feel like I haven't...
Yeah, you blame the coaches, Jamal.
Well, yeah, of course I would. You know, I would blame the coaches, but I think that the Unicorns have shown, when Sheepy's in the mood for it, that he will pull out a Draft Kingdom, and it becomes very impossible for the enemy team to play. You saw it in the tiebreak against LDLC to make it here to the top 8, actually to qualify as first seed rather, and it happened once or twice in their previous series or in the top 8 itself. So I think the draft is going to be very, very important for UL, because I think that they're a team that know how to utilize a strong composition and very handedly understand the conditions of not only their own composition, but the enemy composition. And they will play to shut down the enemy composition a lot more than they'll even play for their own composition's rights.
I don't know where to look at here, honestly. The craziness on one side, experience from some player on the side of Heretics as well. Again, we've talked about the experience from the TCL. FLICKR was playing Gumayushi last year internationally, so this kid's been around, and he's, yeah.
It's his meta.
Yeah,
I tell you,
it's his meta.
Zeri, Jinx, he's been doing, I know we're not doing stats right now, 36% of his team's damage share. That is insane numbers. His team single-handedly relies on him to pop off with 0 resources, and he has done it every single game so far.
What a beast. What a beast. We'll see about this tomorrow, of course. Same time, same place for the second semifinals of the EMEA Masters Spring. Trouble, Shimada, it's been an honor being with you on the desk. You're not getting rid of the French host like this. I will be back tomorrow, of course. Thank you all for following the first semifinals today. We'll see you tomorrow for the pre-show and the second game. Have a good night and see you soon. And I will leave with the trophy because this is for LFL anyway. Bye.
Tuve una caída en mi carrera, pero he vuelto más fuerte que nunca.
Pero ojo con Supa, va a reventar a Marlon. Se atreve ahora con el 1 contra 1 contra FLICKR. No debería de ganar el tetón.
J'ai progressé une étape à la fois jusqu'à arriver au sommet.
Kennen qui est dans la mêlée. Et la côte de Roguette, elle est magnifique du côté d'ADC.
Ich weiß, ich kann der Beste sein. Jetzt muss ich es nur allen zeigen.
Für ihn wird sogar noch mehr ein Triple für ihn. Der Quadra-Kill für Keduii.
선택할 수 있는 길이 많았습니다. 저는 지금 걷고 있는 길이 옳다고 확신합니다.
No napiszcie tutaj na gotowe. Nie odbierajmy. Pentakill jak najbardziej zasłużony.
Orada sıfır bir değişim. Ayakta kalan son isim Elramir.
Uzun zamandır bekliyordum. Şimdi benim zamanım.